welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're embarking on quite a fascinating exploration.
We are indeed.
We're looking into the concept of Shaktipat. And our source material for this is a YouTube transcript. It features Swami Ashok Bharati on the Speaking Tree channel talking about this, this intriguing spiritual phenomenon.
Yes, and it's a really rich conversation he offers. It gives us a great starting point to delve into what Shaktipat actually is.
Right.
What are its potential effects? What's the role of the guru in all this? And also the significance of satsang, which, we can think of as spiritual discourse or maybe a spiritual gathering.
Exactly. So our mission here in this deep dive is really to unpack the core ideas about Shaktipat, just as Swami Ashok Bharati lays them out.
And related concepts too, I think.
Yeah, things that kind of underpin it, like this idea of the immense inner energy we apparently all have, the power of our beliefs, which seems crucial here.
Definitely.
And, well, what it really means to have a genuine spiritual connection.
Okay, so where do we start? He begins with energy itself, doesn't he? Sort of laying the groundwork.
He does. He kicks things off by emphasizing that the whole universe, and that includes us, obviously, is fundamentally just this huge reservoir of energy.
Yeah, he gives examples like the sun, right? Just constantly pouring out energy, or the air, the wind, fire, things we see every day.
It's a powerful way to frame it, isn't it? Because we often feel drained, like we're running low.
Right.
But he's suggesting we're actually part of this vast cosmic family. We're always connected to this energy.
Always. So the problem isn't really a lack of energy.
No.
It's more about not understanding it, or maybe not knowing how to use our own potential.
You're not running on empty. You just haven't quite figured out how to tap into your own internal power source. That's the idea.
Precisely. The challenge is understanding and channeling what's already there.
He uses an analogy too, which I thought was quite good. He compares it to intellect.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you have intellect but don't use it, your mind can get cluttered, maybe chaotic.
Makes sense.
And similarly, if you have this inner energy but don't channel it, it could get misdirected or just sort of stagnate.
Yeah, that really lands. It suggests we need to actively engage with these inner resources.
Just like engaging the mind.
Right. Just as we cultivate our minds, learn things, apply our intellect. He's saying we need to find creative, meaningful ways to direct this inner energy.
And not just for ourselves, right?
No, for personal growth, sure, but also potentially for the benefit of others around us.
Okay, so that sets the stage nicely. This naturally brings us to the main event, Shaktipat. The transcript mentions a personal story someone shared. They felt a positive change after drinking water blessed by a Siddha Purush.
Yes, basically an accomplished being, someone spiritually realized.
Okay, but what's really interesting is Swami Ashok Bharati's perspective on why the person felt better.
Yes, this is fascinating. He basically says, look, the water itself, maybe that accounted for like 5% of the effect.
Only 5%.
Only 5. The other 95% he attributes to the person's faith. Their shraddha, unwavering faith and trust.
That's huge. It says so much about the power of our own minds, our own belief.
It really does. He's essentially saying your faith unlocks the door for that transformation. The water, or whatever the external thing is secondary.
So for Shaktipat to really land, to be effective,
the recipient needs that unwavering faith in the giver. They need to see the guru almost as divine. With that level of reverence, complete surrender and trust seem absolutely key.
And what about the giver, the guru? It's not just about the receiver's faith, is it?
No. Critically, the giver has to operate without ego. They shouldn't feel like they are the one doing Shaktipat.
Ah, okay. So they're more like a conduit.
Exactly. A pure, selfless conduit for this energy. If the ego comes in like, I'm performing this miracle, it seems to block the flow.
That brings up that story he tells, the Sufi analogy.
Right, the Sufi and his shadow. He asks for the blessing for his shadow, not himself.
Why? To avoid that very trap, right? The illusion of personal agency, the ego wanting to receive the blessing itself.
Precisely. It shows how even the desire for a blessing can be tangled up with ego. True receiving happens when you kind of step outside that self-centered view.
So the giver is a channel, understands they aren't the source, but there's a flip side for the disciple, isn't there?
Yes, there's a reciprocal thing. While the guru aims for egolessness, the disciple should feel gratitude. They should recognize the guru's role, the influence.
So that feeling of thankfulness, that acknowledgement from the disciple.
It kind of creates the right environment, maybe, keeps the channel open for that energy and guidance to flow. It's this dynamic interaction.
And the Swami is really clear. You can't force Shaktipat on someone.
Absolutely not. It needs the recipient's active participation, their willingness, their openness.
He uses that image of opening doors and windows. You have to consciously allow it in.
Which really emphasizes the disciple's own agency in this. It's not passive, it's an active engagement.
He also mentions the atmosphere being important. That Shaktipat often happens in places charged with love and deep reverence. He mentions Krishna's Ras Leela as an example.
Right, suggesting the whole emotional and spiritual environment plays a part. Certain states, certain surroundings might be more conducive to these kinds of experiences, this energy transmission.
Now this next bit is really insightful, I think. Swami Ashok Bharati shares a personal story about Osho.
During a devotional singing session.
In Osho's room, yeah. He describes feeling this energy actually enter him.
But he adds a crucial detail.
Yes. His own state at the time. He talks about his own receptivity being in intense inner turmoil.
Yeah.
Those were factors.
And importantly, other people were there too, right?
Exactly. Others were present, but they didn't have the same experience.
That really hammers home the point, doesn't it? The disciple's inner state is paramount. It wasn't just about being near Osho.
No, it was Swami Ashok Bharati's own readiness, that deep inner yearning that allowed him to receive it. It challenges the idea that just being physically present guarantees anything.
So the guru is like a presence, a guide. They set the stage, perhaps.
Yeah, but ultimately it's the disciple who has to do the inner work. Receiving the energy, integrating it, that's on them.
The guru provides the conditions, the guidance maybe, but the transformation itself, that's a deeply personal journey.
Okay, so building on this Shaktipat, working through faith, the guru as a conduit, let's look more closely at the role of that conduit, the guru.
Right.
The Swami explains that the guru uses guidance, stories, things to cultivate devotion and surrender in the disciple.
And what's interesting is the emphasis on just being in the guru's presence, without wanting something specific,
No agenda.
Exactly. He suggests attachment to outcomes, like wanting a specific result, can actually get in the way of the connection. It's about pure presence, pure receptivity.
So the guru isn't there to fix your problems necessarily.
No, more like a mirror maybe, reflecting your own inherent divinity back at you. Their real aim, he says, isn't solving worldly issues,
but guiding you towards realizing your true self, your Atmasvarup, helping you understand you are already that divine essence.
which taps into a core idea in many spiritual paths, right? The divine isn't out there to be found. It's our own nature waiting to be, well, remembered.
The illusion is feeling separate from it.
He talks about the game of beliefs, how we identify so strongly with our physical body from childhood onwards.
And that identification creates our sense of limitation, our suffering.
So realization isn't about gaining something new, it's about remembering who you truly are underneath all those layers of belief.
Like thinking you can't ride a bike just because you haven't tried. The belief limits you, even if the potential is there.
That ties into liberation, Mukti, doesn't it? Escaping the cycle of birth and death by transcending their body identification and realizing you are Atma.
And the guru's role in that is like giving directions.
That's the analogy he uses, like giving you directions back to your own home that you've forgotten. They offer the map, the guidance.
But you have to walk the path. The journey back is yours. It underscores the disciple's active role again.
The walking, the effort, the inner shift, that's all on the individual.
And connecting with the guru consistently is key. Through satsang.
Yes, he mentions daily connection as ideal, but suggests regular intervals are still valuable monthly, quarterly, every 6 months.
With Guru Purna being the absolute minimum baseline.
Right, and what's significant is how he positions satsang relative to other practices.
Like meditation or hatha yoga.
Yeah, he suggests that for realizing the Atma Tattva, the essence of the self, satsang is potentially more direct. It fosters vivek discernment, deeper understanding.
He talks about how to listen in satsang too. Samyak Shravan, true listening.
Which involves?
Letting go of preconceived ideas, past knowledge. Even, he says, temporarily setting aside the influence of previous gurus to fully connect with the present one.
Wow, okay. That requires real presence and humility, doesn't it? Suspending your existing frameworks to let something new in.
But he balances it too. He stresses respecting those who led you to your current guru.
Acknowledging the stepping stones.
Exactly. Honoring the journey, but emphasizing the need for a living guide for ongoing support.
He uses those practical examples, right? Needing a living doctor, a living lawyer.
Yeah, pointing out the limitations of guides who aren't physically present anymore.
And then he makes this really crucial distinction between sat sangat,
Which is like associating with various spiritual people.
And true satsang, which is that deep connection and discourse with a genuine guru.
And he notes that many people spend their whole lives in satsangat, kind of spiritual window shopping maybe.
Perhaps, without ever really landing in that transformative space of true satsang.
That difference seems key. Satsangat might broaden your horizons, but satsang, in his view, is where the deeper engagement happens.
So how do you know? How do you know you've shifted from one to the other?
He says satsang begins when listening to a specific teacher really resonates deeply. It causes an inner stirring, an awakening.
Ah, so that inner resonance is the signpost.
Yeah, it tells you found the right place, the right connection for you at that time. It's like an inner compass.
That makes sense. And finally, he briefly touches on material help from a guru.
Right, just to clarify. He states pretty clearly that a true guru's main purpose isn't providing material aid.
Their focus is guiding towards self-realization.
Which circles back to the core theme, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The journey is inward. True fulfillment isn't about external stuff, but realizing your own divine nature.
So let's try and wrap this up. In this deep dive, looking at Swami Ashok Bharati's insights, we've really explored this idea of inner energy as this, well, vast, often untapped resource within all of us.
And we dug into Shaktipat, how it's understood not just as an energy transfer, but something deeply reliant on the recipient's unwavering faith.
There's Shraddha.
And the giver acting as a selfless, egoless conduit.
We also looked at the vital role of the guru, not as a miracle worker, but as a guide, pointing the way back to your true self.
And the power of genuine satsang, that deep connection, that dedicated listening, being willing to shed limiting beliefs.
It all paints a picture of a spiritual path that's very much about inner transformation, guided by presence and facilitated by faith.
Absolutely. Which leads us to maybe a final thought for you, the listener. Reflect on that core distinction. Seeking external fixes versus remembering the divinity that's already inherent within you.
And maybe consider how that principle of focused faith, the 95% Shraddha we talked about with Shaktipat, how might that apply elsewhere in your life?
Yeah, maybe in learning something new, or your creative work, or just personal growth. Where could focused belief make a real difference for you? Something to ponder.